Have you been seeing people posting on social media, Kahane was right recently? Well, most often those people don't really understand what it means to say Kahane was right. And had they just read through Meir Kahane's Wikipedia page, they probably wouldn't be posting that. And so I'm making this video to spare people the mistake and then perhaps the shame later of what happens when you post Kahane was right, what the meaning of saying Kahane was right, and what signing up to such an ideology it means, because most of the people who say it, if they knew who Meir Kahane was and if they knew what he argued for, would be shocked and embarrassed and would never ever say it. And so it's for you that I'm making this video, because I care for many of the people who say this and just have no clue what they're actually saying. So let's start with the fact that Meir Kahane is, there's two Meir Kahanes. There's the Kahane that lived in the United States, and then when Meir Kahane moved to Israel, he became a different type of person, and the two Kahanas are very different. Why? Because the Meir Kahane who lived in the United States until the early 1970s actually had many, many merits. Most notably, Meir Kahane was one of the loudest, most vocal voices in the struggle for freedom for Soviet Jewry. And so what he did to fight to raise awareness to the plight of Soviet Jews, 3 million Jews locked behind the Soviet Iron Curtain, was extraordinary. I don't agree with all the methods he took, which included violence and planning to send bombs to people and stuff like that. But nonetheless, 3 million Jews were locked behind the Iron Curtain, and Meir Kahane did do a lot to make sure the public was aware of those Jews and their fate. And so to that, he must get credit. Whether what he did with the JDL was helpful, the Jewish Defense League, or not was helpful is a matter of debate. I'm not going to get into it. I'm also not going to get into the alleged scandals in his personal life and his scandals with his fallout with the Beitar movement. I'm going to fast forward to the time he moves to Israel, decides to run for Knesset, and is then outlawed. The Israeli courts decide it's illegal to have him in the Knesset, and he himself also has there's a law made saying that, look, if you advocate for principles that want to destroy Israel, namely, you want to turn Israel into a non-democratic state, and to erase a lot of its identity, you can't run to the Knesset. What the people who say Kahane was right do not know is that in 1980, Menachem Begin, the great Menachem Begin, ordered the arrest of Meir Kahane. And he was on administrative detention, meaning there were no actual legal grounds to arrest him, but Israel does have this clause for cases of terrorism, and because Meir Kahane was plotting too many violent actions, Menachem Begin had him arrested for several months. So that's just something you should know. So what does it mean when you say Kahane was right? So first of all, if you say Kahane was right and you don't live in Israel, you need to understand that Meir Kahane said that people who do not live in Israel cannot brand themselves as Zionists, because it's a contradiction, in his opinion, to be a Zionist and to not live in Israel. So for starters, if you're saying Kahane was right and you consider yourself a Zionist and you're not living in Israel, tough luck, and that's all a contradiction. You cannot, in Kahane's view, be a Zionist and live outside of Israel. Another important thing is that Kahane believed that American Jewry, like other people said, are going to disappear, are going to assimilate, etc. Look around you, see yourself, see your family. That didn't happen. So just make sure you're aware of that, and just take note of that. Next, his constant speech against a diaspora Jewry is something you should make note of, because you yourself are a diaspora Jewry. But let's talk about what his vision for the state of Israel is and why you would never ever agree to say Kahane was right. So first and foremost, he wanted to destroy the state of Israel as we know it and turn it into a non-democratic state. You know how your people often are going to say, oh, we don't want America to be Sharia law. We don't want it to be some kind of crazy theocracy. Well, guess what? Meir Kahane wanted to turn Israel exactly into that. He did not want Israel to be a democracy. He wanted to expel all Israeli Arabs, and he wanted to make Israel into a theocracy. I don't know what everyone's level of observance is, but I do know that more than 96% of Jews around the world live in democracies for a reason. living under a theocracy is not a fun thing. And even if that theocracy is Jewish, I'm guessing the reason you didn't move to Mea She'arim or to some very religious area is because you didn't want people telling you exactly how to dress and what you should do. And that's something that Meir Kahane did. Let's talk about other things that he did in Israel that are absolutely reprehensible before we even talk about the fact that his ideas were just plain just wrong and unwise. So number one is that Meir Kahane said, okay, there can be no peace as long as there are Israeli Arabs there, and therefore he wanted to expel Arabs. He wanted to have laws that are basically the Nuremberg laws for Israel that would forbid any dating or marriage between Jews and non-Jews, but specifically he would target Arabs. He also suggested that there would be separate beaches for Jews and for Arabs. Now, I don't care how observant, how right-wing, left-wing, whatever it is you are. If the idea that a Jewish state of Israel will make laws that there are separate beaches for Jews and non-Jews, if the idea that you would have a police enforcing certain laws about who can walk where and do what based on their religion, if that doesn't bother you to the core of who you are, then you have some history to read. But yes, those are all things that Meir Kahane supported. And finally, I want to read to you when Meir Kahane was basically outlawed, when his party was outlawed, the court said the following: its list advocates for racist and anti-democratic principles that contradict the Declaration of Independence of the State of Israel. Listen to this. Openly supports act of terror, seeks to incite hatred and hostility between different segments of the population, and basically he denies the fundamental foundations of the democratic state of Israel. Now, why was Kahane wrong practically when you say Kahane was right? Okay, here's the story. He did not believe in anything happening through peace and diplomacy. Everything was through war. Now, I remind you, much as you can oppose it or hate it, if your child is not serving on the Israeli-Egyptian border, that's probably because Israel has a peace agreement with Egypt. It's not a great agreement. It's not a perfect agreement. But unless you're willing to send your child or to go yourself and defend Israel on the Egyptian border, on the Jordanian border, that would be because then you should be speaking, because Meir Kahane did not believe in that. He didn't believe in anything diplomatic. And it's okay to be hawkish, and it's okay to believe in peace through strength. But it's absolutely ridiculous and obscene and a betrayal of Menachem Begin's heritage to say that nothing can be achieved through peace, because Israel does have a peace agreement with Jordan. It does have a peace agreement with Egypt, and those are all things that Meir Kahane didn't believe in. Very importantly, over the past year and a half, there were many people who said, oh, Israeli Arabs are going to join Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and turn on Israel. That didn't happen. I'm not saying there aren't problems of Palestinian nationalism among Israeli Arabs, but the Meir Kahane prediction of them all turning on Israelis and joining the enemy didn't happen and are not happening, and it's because Kahane was actually, in fact, not right. He was absolutely wrong. But you know what? There's something about people who say that Kahane was right that is very, very similar to the communist, Stalinist, Leninist people. Why? I once had a professor who was a communist. He's a professor who was, a socialist, whatever. And I challenged him. I said, look at it. Look what communism has done to Russia. Look at what communism has done to China. Look at what communism has done to Cuba. Terrible, terrible things. Socialist communism. These are ideas that killed tens of millions of people. Very dangerous ideas. And if you ever debated a communist, you know what they're about to answer you. They're going to say, well, it wasn't tried properly. It wasn't actually done properly. The same is true about Meir Kahane and his ideology. There's a person in the Israeli government now. His name is Itamar Ben-Gvir. He is a direct successor to the Kahane ideology. And you know what he's done in his term? You know what his term over the past year has done to the Jewish people? You've seen the news. Death, destruction, poverty, humiliation, and only defeatism. What Itamar Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and other people who are in the Kahane line of thought have done to Israel is a destruction that has not taken place in the history of Israel. It's easy to say, oh, they're right-wing, they're hawkish, they love Israel, they love the Jewish people. They don't. They don't. Look at what people like Ben Gurion did. Look at what the Israeli pioneers, look at what they did. They built a state. They brought millions of Jews to the land of Israel. They created an extraordinary miracle of once in 2,000 years of building a state. They won every single war they fought, 1948, 1956, 1967, even Golda in 1973, who was taken by surprise, and that was not okay. Even Golda crushed the Syrian and Egyptian army within 2 weeks, brought them to a humiliating defeat. And what have Ben-Gvir and Smotrich done for Israel? Now 15 months fighting in Gaza. Where's the great victory? Where's the great victory that they promised, total victory? It's not there. It's not there. Of course, there's been a huge amount of progress. Hamas has been crippled, but is it anything like the victories of 48, 67, 56, 73? Nothing like it. And why is that? Because Kahanism is a lot of talk and very little action. Kahanism is fantastical thinking that is immoral, but also, more importantly, impractical. It's something ridiculous that is a childish way of thinking that breeds hate, destruction, and only brought bad on Israel. You want Kahanism? Go see Itamar Ben-Gvir. See what he brought on the people of Israel. Only defeat, only loss, only hate, only fights. And that's the direct result of Kahanism. By the way, Israel's president, Chaim Herzog, when he had the position to assign a coalition building for a future Israeli government, he did not allow Meir Kahane in. Why? He says something, a program, a agenda like him that advocates for racism, discrimination, and denial of rights is contrary to the principle of the Torah of Israel. The Kahanist idea of discriminating against people based on their religion, based on saying, oh, are they Arab or not, saying things as horrific as saying, okay, we have separate beaches for Jews and non-Jews, the things that he said about American Jews, the things that he said about American Jews who are not moving to Israel, all these different things are appalling and shocking. And so therefore, anyone who says Kahane was right clearly never took 4 minutes to read about Kahane. Anyone who says anything that Kahane was right just has no clue what Kahane's positions are. It's a populist way of thinking. It's a defeated way of thinking. It's a way of thinking that has brought only shame and destruction on Israel with Itamar Ben-Gvir and his goons. And it's time that we stop mainstreaming it. I've seen too many mainstream individuals being okay with it, accepting it, saying this is tolerable. It's not tolerable. It's a reprehensible ideology. And you know what? When Menachem Begin ordered Meir Kahane to be arrested in 1980, it's because he knew what he was doing. Menachem Begin knew why he wanted Meir Kahane arrested. He knew Menachem Begin was a danger to the people of Israel. And frankly, since Menachem Begin moved to Israel in the early 1970s until the time where he was killed, which is a terrible thing, what did he do for Israel? 20 years he moved to Israel. What has he done? One good thing. I want you to leave me a comment. One good thing that Meir Kahane has done for Israel. Tell me one good thing that Meir Kahane, Kahanism, and Itamar Ben-Gvir have done for Israel. Nothing but destruction. And so when you say, oh, Kahane was right, understand, not only is it immoral, not only is it reprehensible, but it's going to bring the destruction of Israel. If we allow for Kahanism to take root, it's going to bring destruction in Israel. And there's a reason that the Israeli courts and Knesset all voted against Meir Kahane and to make him illegal. By the way, even Itamar Ben-Gvir got he got a few thousand votes, maybe 10, 20,000 votes, but he was brought into the coalition, given power, but he himself has not had the amount of support that he pretends to have. So reject Kahane, actually don't reject Kahane as much as Kahanism. You want to treat an individual with respect, obviously that's an important thing, but Kahanism, his ideas, the idea of destroying Israeli democracy, the idea of saying you cannot be a Zionist and live in the diaspora, the ideas of putting Nuremberg-type laws against Israeli Arabs are reprehensible and unforgivable, impractical, and bringing death and destruction on Israel. So speak out against it now.